Well, good morning. Welcome to episode 297 of Hobby Hotline. That is Chris Carlin to next to me. Below is Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights, and I'm Danny Black, the only person here who has never had anything to do with grading. How are you guys doing?
I'm going to get you to grade a card this year.
Oh, in my mind, I'm perfect. Don't worry. Aren't we? Aren't we all when we look at them?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They're like our
We got an active chat room, so let me just get some hellos out of the way. Vintage Goats, Mad City Brew. Which company will buy the next company? That's a great question. Philly Joe, good morning. Clean, good morning. Val 5. Rex, good morning. And the sports card shop from Buffalo, New Buffalo and Valparaiso. I've been there. We're on the big screens as always. Thank you. Ruben, morning. You're doing the evening and the morning with me as well. Same thing with Dan. We ended filming card merchants last night. Yeah, pretty late. Yeah, he's great in Korea. So good to have everybody and Victor stopping in. Oh, I'm just heavy, Victor. They're the hitters. Lots of news this week, and I don't want to beat around the bush. The big news to start the week, and Chris, I'm going to kind of let you talk on this a little bit more, but I call it a trade. It was Ken Golden for a vault to be named later. Is that something like that? Break this down.
Listen, Ken is fantastic. He is uniquely Ken. He does things that nobody else can do, and he has always been a great partner with us here at Collectors, and we just felt like there was an opportunity. We try to listen to our customers, and a lot of our customers have shared that they love the idea of a vaulting service. They love being able to sell easily through Golden. I've done it myself. It's super simple, very, very easy. But we've been having customers ask us for eBay. We want to be able to sell on eBay. And as we looked at that and started having discussions with eBay, there was a lot more synergy there than we initially anticipated, and opportunities for us to do some really unique things to take some of the friction out of the path to liquidity, and that's what we're going to pursue. So, our vault is very close to their vault, so it made sense for us to look at that. And vaulting is a service that Collectors is going to be deeply invested in because, again, it gives customers that path to liquidity. So if you, for example, at some point send your card in to be graded, you can vault it with us and then sell it through either Golden or eBay now. So if you have a super premium card, maybe you're thinking Golden. If you've got a $50 card, maybe it's eBay, and it's just nice, easy, and simple. So that's kind of the goal of this whole thing is to make the experience better for collectors everywhere. And I know we just announced it, but as some of the functionality starts to roll out and as it gets more robust, I think that collectors are really going to appreciate this change.
Dr. Beckett, an interesting concept. Submit for grading and then off to a couple marketplaces. What do you think of this?
I'm looking at it in the personal.
Excuse me. I'm calling Dr. Jim and telling him, "Hey, stick to the."
It's Nat Turner saying,
"Okay." No, here's the thing that I think is interesting. That is, and this is a word, and I mean it in a good sense. But Ken Golden is bombastic. So is Brian Gray, and so they're huge voices in this industry. But Ken fits better with eBay than he did with collectors. And so I don't know who initiated it, but I love Ken using his big megaphone to bring attention, which he is fabulous at, to the eBay platform. It didn't quite fit with the ethos of collectors. And that's not a bad thing. But I think Nat Turner and the ownership are trying to conform the image of the company in a certain way. And And so I think Ken is going to really thrive at eBay in a way that he couldn't in collectors. And I think picking up I think some consolidation of vaults is a good idea. There's a lot of vaults out there.
Yeah.
There's not that's so I like that, and I like the seamless. One of the things, Chris, I don't think you could say that as much, but there were grumblings that there was the close relationship between one auction house and the number one grading company was a little too symbiotic. And in this case, now you're more playing the field. So I think you avoid all that criticism by saying, we're providing an opportunity for our the people that are grading and in the vault to go wherever they want to, but especially to our now sort of primary partner for selling. So it makes sense. And I think Ken is going to have some freedom that he didn't have, and he's going to bring a lot of attention to eBay on the high end.
Without a doubt. Chris, I want to follow up with that also. Is you talked about the friction points and eliminating some of those. How soon is everything going to be fully up and running? And I know there was different, and I don't know if you can even speak to this, different payout policies between Golden and eBay and stuff like that. Does PSA have anything to do with that, or are they operating totally separately on all the transactions?
So first, to your first question, a lot of things are already happening. I mean, Collectors has been, and PSA has been, the provider of authenticity guarantee for a lot of eBay's products that go through. So people might realize, hey, I'm sending this, looks like I'm sending my card that I just sold to PSA. Well, you are. We're looking at slabs, we're looking at cards, etc. So this will be a more comprehensive agreement with regard to what our team is reviewing to make sure collectors are getting the real deal, right? I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's one of the most important things. And for where we go from there, I think it's there's a lot of different opportunities, but we don't have say in what they charge for fees or things along those lines. We definitely share what our customers share about they'd like lower fees, and we definitely understand that. But both those companies have businesses to run too, and it is a business. So fees help them, advertise and make new updates and things along those lines. So I don't know where that will go, but the one thing I do know is new services will definitely be offered that aren't today, which is really cool, where potentially you might be buying a card on eBay and then, a little thing will pop up that says, do you want to have this graded with PSA? And you could send it into PSA right before you even get the card. So there's a lot of little things like that we're definitely exploring, again, to make the experience better for collectors at the end of the day.
I'm sorry, Dr. Becker. Go ahead.
Well, Chris, I mean, basically, what I love about this, it does reduce the friction, but it also, instead of being like a merger and a rev share and those kind of things, it's a division of labor. Here's what we're really good at.
Yes.
Here's what you're really good at. We're going to do our thing, and we're going to do great at that. You're going to do your thing, and you're world class at that. And so I like that with complicated mergers or business relationships that can be he said, she said. So I like the way this is structured at this point.
Yeah. And again, we're just going to listen to our customers at the end of the day and try to drive things in the direction that they want it, because at the end of the day, I mean, we don't exist without them. So it's really important that we do that.
Before I catch up on some hellos, Chris, I want to make sure I understood what you were saying before about the authenticity guarantee. Is PSA handling all of that for eBay now moving forward, or do they handle certain segments of that?
We handled all the slabbed, and I believe, I don't want to speak inaccurately here, but we will be handling more of the other types of collectibles for eBay too, trading card wise. So how that rolls out, when that rolls out, I don't have those details right now.
Okay. Just want to catch up on, we got a lot of hellos this morning. TJ, hello. Alan says, I grew up in the 90s as a teenager and every month always look forward to acquiring the new copy of Beckett Baseball
Me
Card.
too.
Yes. Dr. Beckett's thinking, why not football and basketball also? Cooter says, good morning. Be sure to file your taxes on your card sales. Monday is the deadline. A good reminder, or at least file that extension, people. Frank says, good morning. Foul 5 is not a fan of the vaults. It's more for the flippers. I always find that interesting. I think it's somewhere in between.
I have to make a big disagreement there because I thought the same thing initially. But as I started collecting more after I left Upper Deck, my wife started saying, like, I'm nervous having some of this stuff in the house. And I've had cards stolen from me before. It sucks. And what an awesome way to store your collectibles where you don't pay any, you don't have to pay insurance on it, homeowner's insurance, adding it to your policy, and then you trade it and what have you. So being able to see it on my phone and know it's in a secure place is pretty darn awesome. Now, when we go to cities that are and countries that are safer, like Canada, and I was just in South Korea, which is incredibly safe. They can't wrap their heads around the vaulting as much as an American consumer can. But for me, that peace of mind of removing premium items from my home where, my wife and kids sleep, to somewhere safe is a pretty great proposition for me and keeps the wife happy. So I think that it's not just to sell, I would say.
I agree with what Chris is saying. Basically, if you look at the cost of insurance, or not necessarily the cost of a safe deposit box, but you look at the various ways you could keep a valuable card, and the vaulting, especially if you're going to transact it at some point in that environment, is kind of the cheapest and least friction way. Now you probably got maximum security, probably similar to a bank vault. But
it's crazy. The security is
happening. It's happening. Yeah. There's too many of them out there that it'll either be more in vogue in 5 years or less in vogue. But if cards are still going to have this physical element, and when you slab them, what I found is that when I slab my cards, all of a sudden now my safe deposit box bill goes up because they take up a lot more room, especially if they're slightly oversized and all that. So I think vaulting's here to stay, and there'll be consolidation, and this was a big step toward that.
Yeah, and I think the important question that collectors really need to ask themselves is, where do you want to have your cards vaulted? And the answer is a company that is going to be there in the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years. And I know that we're positioned that way. So you definitely want to go with a company that you can trust and is going to be there in a few years.
And I think it's like everything else in the hobby. Collect your way. If it's right for you, it's fantastic.
On the other hand, guys, are they buying a vault? Or are they buying the physical vault? Or I think they're buying the vault and everything that's in it. I mean, they're now going to be in charge of that. But really, it's a physical capital expense to build a vault, and it's not trivial. It's not trivial.
No, it took a lot of time.
So the amount of money to replicate what eBay has, and I haven't been there, but I've seen it looks really nice. So even if you paid or valued it a lot of money, there's the value just of the physical structure and all the high-tech stuff that goes into making that vault.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't do tours, but wouldn't that be cool?
I was just thinking that we do like an ice cream factory, like the Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I went in the Beckett vault, and it was amazing, and it's but it's not about the vault being amazing. It's about what's in the vault being amazing and stored safely and securely, and proper humidity, and they're fireproof, all that stuff. But my bank is that too. So
one of my favorite rooms at Upper Deck back in the day when we had this portion of our business in our California headquarters was the game used room. and you go in there and it's all these can use bats and apparel and autographs, and it was just a blast. Like you could get stuck in there for hours on end. But that was cool that we could show people that sometimes with security. So, but yeah, it's cool to see everything together in a place for sure. But not something that we can do tours of.
Just catching up on a couple comments. Ken says, as a licensed insurance agent, I agree the vaulting is a great way to do it and a lot less expensive. And to your point, Chris, Korean Cardboard Dan says, correct, vaults are unnecessary here. Very interesting.
To put some
it's funny in Seoul, they say that you could drop your credit card on the ground and it'll be there 2 days later. And I witnessed this firsthand when my wife left her coat in the casino. I went back the next day and it was still right in the same chair. Incredible. So different cultures.
In Atlantic City, they would have taken it off of her.
Yeah.
I'll take that for you.
Right.
What I was going to say is insurance. If and I think it's less than this at large amounts, but if your insurance on a $10,000 card is $100 a year, 1%, that doesn't sound so horrible. But if it's $100,000 card, now you're paying $1,000 a year to insure that card, which probably nothing's going to happen to it, and you're not going to insure it for 100 years. But when you get into those bigger numbers, the vault really makes a lot of sense. And having it at home as you get into 5 and 6 figures, Chris, I hear you. And again, if there's a meta message in here, it's listen to your wife.
Well, the other thing, is kind of as you prepare for your passing too, I've got a what to do if letter, because my biggest fear is that, all my prized collectibles are going to end up at a garage sale and for pennies on the dollar. And it's some of these things are set aside for my kids, my grandkids, and their future. So I think, being able to have things in a safe place definitely pays dividends.
And tax-wise, depending on where you're buying, if you're keeping the cards in there, talk to your accountant. But yeah, there's can be some benefits if you're keeping it not in your own hands.
Well, Chris, is there a competitive disadvantage that PSA has, and even with this eBay vault of being located in Southern California?
Oh, our vault isn't in Southern California.
What about the eBay vault? Are they both in like Delaware or Oregon or someplace?
Yeah, they're both. I believe Delaware. So they're actually pretty close to each other, actually.
Well, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah,
takes away one more hiccup, one more headache.
Well, you were talking about that 1 or 2% on insurance, and it made me realize it's a couple more percent on the taxes too. So now, if you can go through the entire ecosystem, it's Rex. I'm looking for his quote here. Just talked about here it is. The ability to list cards directly to eBay as soon as grading is done is a fantastic idea. I think there's a lot of people that don't like the shipping aspect of eBay or grading. I mean, nobody likes having to deal with the shipping. So
listen, the companies that are always winning for collectors and no one ever talks about are FedEx and USPS, because God, I spend so much money shipping stuff. And
that insurance insurance is outrageous.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like they know they're going to lose it.
Well, they're not. They know they're not going to lose it, and so they love charging the insurance. And if it's full value, that's a lot. That's why these collector insurance, friendlier, collector savvy insurance companies that are out there, like Stadium, which is Danny's new sponsor, and the group that BGS has, they cover in transit too.
Yeah,
and so you don't have to get the FedEx or UPS insurance.
Mike Petty says that he does have specific directions in his trust for his collection, and it does not include garage sales. So that's probably a good thing to put in there. Put a specific exclusion on garage sales or guys that they say they met at a card show.
Yeah. Yeah, so both eBay and PSA's vault are located in Delaware. That's for tax savings.
Uh, Chris, this came up this week on social media, and I'll throw it in real quick from Rex. Any plans to send greater notes back to your customers with each card? Greater notes got big this week.
It did, and it's been something that we've been talking about for a long time internally. Nat's always very funny. It's very cool that you have someone who owns a company who's so engaged in the hobby and like answers collectors' questions. It reminds me a lot of you, Dr. Jim. And so yeah, he let the cat out of the bag a little bit. That it's something that we're hoping to start doing consistently as part of a service. But it does take a little time for graders to add these notes. So it will, I believe it's going to start off with more premium services, but there'll be a lot more details on that in the near future. And it's something we're quite excited about, and something, again, our customers have been asking for. And again, everything that we try to do at Collectors is for collectors. And it's really cool to work for a company that makes customers such a important focus in our day-to-day. So we've heard that loud and clear, and it's something we're trying to bring to customers.
I was blown away when they started doing heat maps on raw cards on PWCC. That Mike Baker would create a heat map of the raw card. So that I was like, I never cared about this until I saw it. Now that I've seen it, I can't go back. Yeah. I want to know all the details. And Dr. Beckett, it was one of the reasons I always like the subgrades. I don't, and I know they've made an announcement that they're, going to be keeping subgrades, but I always thought that was just more information.
Well, again, just to talk through this, graders' notes are a good thing. Subgrades are a good thing because they're giving more information, but they do open up PSA and BGS and anybody that does that to greater scrutiny, micro scrutiny of the card. And so you're going to have a lot more dialogue, Chris, with your submitters when they get the notes, and then they want to talk about this micro defect that you saw, or they'll sharpshoot you that you didn't see it. And so it's tricky.
It absolutely is tricky, because
you're going to have a lot
trying to give the customer what they want, and sometimes
you're the customer experience guy.
Yeah, so I'll be dealing with a lot of those.
Ultimately, it'll be a better customer experience, but it's going to be more work for your customer experience group, because you're going to get bounce backs of saying, "Hey, I saw the graders' notes, and I want to talk about that." It gives them something to focus on. I'm just saying what our experience was, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing. One more thing, it slows down your grading. Subgrade.
Yeah, that's why we've had to. You can't just flip the switch and turn this on.
Exactly. If you do it for every card, just like BGS found out, it really slows down. Now, I think it makes the grading more accurate if you're going to be held to a standard of not just the number, but here are the subgrades, here are the graders' notes. But it takes a little more time. So.
Yeah, we have definitely been scaling up in all the right ways to prepare for things like this, the eBay acquisition, the eBay agreement, and
you heard it here first. eBay acquisition. I love it, Chris. Thinking big.
Not there yet. Yeah.
Mookie always has a good comment before we move on. It solves all the problems of slowing it down. Just have the graders speak in real time on transcription programs so you can listen in while they're grading your card. That wouldn't be in any way inappropriate, but it's an interesting idea, Mookie. All right, any final comments on that, guys?
How could you not see the crease right here? No.
Dr. Beckett's not even kidding. That is every email for your next year.
Yeah.
Well, they never, again, our training of our graders, it's not a big secret. Everybody probably does this. You flunk grading if you don't see the flaws. So there's two kinds. There's seeing something that's not there and seeing something that you should see that's in there. And so no submitter is going to say, hey, you missed this flaw. And the graders hopefully saw all the flaws. And if they didn't, they're not properly trained.
Yeah.
Rex says inconsistency and mystery surrounding how grades are derived is a big issue. Yeah, I think transparency is the opposite of that, and that's what I think all this is leaning towards.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things that we have appreciated coming out of COVID is being able to be at events again. And again, I'm in Washington D.C. today to do an event with the Washington Capitals. We're taking in submissions at a Washington Capitals game.
My sons are going to the game, Chris.
So yeah, bring some cards. We'll get them submitted for you. But being able to be out in front of customers again and being at more events than ever before allows us to explain our services in greater detail to customers and walk them through the process and enlighten them and help create a better understanding for why these services are needed.
Absolutely. Shout out to Alex, who has 12 Jackie rookies. So nice. Go, Alex. All right.
Where? Put them in a vault, Alex.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Getting graded, Alex. It's
certainly before you put them on social
value
media.
There in both cards.
I am in Baltimore. Jackson.
Wait a minute. Can Alex provide his address? Just kidding.
You know what? We'll get one card graded for free if you send the rest. I'm in Baltimore. Jackson Holiday. Big news this week. And from a hobby standpoint is where we're looking at this. Prices through the roof. But what I think is really cool is the debut patches. I might be biased because I'm a baseball fan. I love young players. But I think the patch may be the best new innovation combining on the field and off the field marketing with the cards. Jackson, we're still waiting for his first hit, but the debut patch is done. Dr. Beckett, what do you think of the debut patch? Is it a manufactured gimmick or is it legitimately cool?
Well, it's legitimately cool, but again, we started off talking about grading and authenticating, and it's a manufactured patch, and I'm not sure. Maybe there's some DNA in there, like the PSA DNA. Maybe there's something that makes it unique, but to me it looks replicable, and it's like the problems we've had that all companies have had with grading is that if something is undetectable as being revised or produced, that's problematic. So I'm hoping there's something that they're doing that's making it clear that the graded companies can make sure there aren't replacement debut patches.
And Chris, you might be able to speak to this better. I thought Fanatics actually marked them.
They do. There's a hologram on the back of them.
Okay.
There you go.
So that happens right when they take it off, actually.
We just ruined Dr. Beckett's afternoon plans.
Well, no, it just shows that's thoughtful. That's thoughtful.
But Chris, what do you think of it as a card insert?
Listen, when Michael Eisner bought Topps, we all believed that this was going to be great for the industry and there was going to be all this media attention, what have you. Gimmicky or not, broadcasters are talking about this during a Major League Baseball game, which is insane for the hobby because as cool as baseball cards are and hockey cards, football cards are, it's rare, if ever, that you see that type of media attention. And I love it. I think it's incredible. It's so great for the hobby as a whole because the more collectors there are, the more all your stuff is worth, So I think it's great.
Mike Petty says, at least it's the first time you have a chance to get a true game-used relic. Other relics are nothing but a party favor. It does solve the whether or not it's game used, player worn, that whole debate. I mean, this is from their first game.
Yeah.
But the thing I really like is it allows the player, and even if they wear more than one jersey that day, it allows the player still to keep their first game jersey if they choose to. Whether or not it ends up in cards later is a different story. But I maybe it's the baseball romantic in me. I think you should have your Major League debut jersey on your wall for the rest of your life. But Dr. Beckett, would this make you buy a card anymore, or does it move the meter for you at all?
In my hierarchy of value, personally, not empirically, is I regard the player autograph as the best addition to a card. And then I regard game used patches or whatever secondary. So I'd rather have an autograph card on card, not sticker. But
well, you get an autograph on card autograph with it, Dr. Jim. So
you could. But I'm just saying the autograph is a bigger deal to me than a debut patch.
Yeah, and again, I think it's tricky, right? Because it's only the people with really deep pockets that are gonna be able to even afford these. I mean, I'm collecting a different Jackson. I'm collecting Jackson Merrill for the Padres, but I'm terrified of what is that card may sell for, because it could be $40,000. I'm not going to be able to do that. So, yeah, it's a little bit frustrating sometimes too for collectors who want to have something unique like that, and it's just who pulls it and who with the deepest pockets ends up getting it.
Yeah, but it's just like one of ones. I mean, everything can be. There's several one of ones for some of these.
Yeah,
many of the sets, and so I again, if it's completely uniquely done, but there could be a different patch for every game. This could be game 2, game 3, game 4. I just, in the old days, sometimes the card companies beat a dead horse. So if it's completely distinguishable, not counterfeitable, then and it really works, Chris, they're going to do more of them. Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't hockey do something like this?
There's already chatter about it. Yeah.
I mean, it makes no sense not to do it if you have a close relationship with the leagues and the players, because it promotes the sport and it promotes the hobby. It's win-win, I hope.
Yeah.
And Chris, to your Jackson Merrill comment, you know, when you're dealing with guys making their major league debuts, the stars are always going to be expensive. The idea is, can you find somebody maybe who's not already at the Jackson Holiday level? And I wonder if there's an opportunity to get some cool patches for lesser known players on their MLB debuts. Yeah. Catch up on a couple comments here. Hitman's Kid made his first Beckett submission. I want you to know, Dr. Beckett. Okay. Mad City Brewer says, when do you think the player gets the original patch? I think that's part of the deal as it goes, Chris, right? That the patch comes off. That's not.
Yeah, the patch comes off, goes into the card. The players can buy it though. I mean, there's a surprising amount of players that are getting into collecting these days. Corbin Carroll, Bobby Witt Jr. There's a few, Evan Longoria, and they're collecting premium stuff. You know, we're seeing it, Mike Trout, you know, bringing cards in. So we see them coming in quite a bit. Phil Nevin was just in. So yeah.
A Ferrari would be cool if the average person could afford one. Same concept with high-end cards. But we still look at Ferraris on the road and we still say, doesn't that look cool? And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Somebody else made the comment, Caitlin Clark greater than Jackson Holiday. Interesting comment here. She might have more of a track record coming up, and her popularity and moving the needle has far surpassed, you know, what Jackson Holiday is doing in baseball. Is Caitlin Clark the biggest thing in the hobby right now from a player standpoint?
Man, I'm still trying to. She's so unique, right? We've never had anything like her. Like Lisa Leslie, maybe Rebecca Lobo. You know, like they didn't do things like she's done. And there seems to be some hate about what she could do at the next level, which is surprising because I'm watching her take threes from mid-court and swish. So I think her game will translate. But yeah, she is special to say the least. And heck, when my father, who's older than you, Dr. Jim, is watching women's basketball glued to the TV for the first time I've ever seen him do this, and is telling me to shut up because he wants to listen to what's going on, like this is something new and exciting. So it's about time. It's about time that women's sports are getting this type of attention. It's great to see how open she is to signing autographs. I know the collector in me is kind of like, oh, there's going to be too many of them out there. You're Pete Rosing yourself, but She's special, man. I want a Caitlin Clark autograph. I've looked at some. There, I'm waiting for the prices to come down a little bit because the market's just so hot right now.
Guys, I really hope I hope in 5 years we're talking about her equally with Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah,
I'm not sure we will be. The problem I have, just with some caution, is that there's some great high school basketball players. Not all of them are equally good in pros, or high school, then college, and then pro. But then next there's playoffs. We're moving into playoffs for basketball. And the defensive intensity, I'm wondering, when you really clamp down defense, like WNBA playoff, the athleticism of the pros is much greater than the college players that she's faced. And I think she may have trouble getting her shot off, not from 40 feet. I think she will be open there. But if they're picking her up at half court and everybody on the other team is very athletic, and they're doing boxing ones and things that are, I think she's going to have trouble going off in the pros. But the word you used, Chris, open. If she's open, she's going to hit. And so I just think in the pro game, and especially in the pro playoffs, on the other hand, I got Luka here in town, who's not the fastest guy, but he finds a way to get open.
Was it Diana Taurasi that was throwing shade at her, Chris?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. That's surprising, but it also validates what Dr. Beckett's saying, is that the veterans of the WNBA and the people that have been there know the difference in the sport. I mean, Diana Taurasi was as good as anybody in college, and for her to say, slow the roll a little bit, these women are professionals. You got to respect that. It also makes me wonder if Angel Reese, Paige Beckers, one of them won't have as equal or better career on people coming out this year.
Well, again, Angel Reese did great in college, but she's undersized when she gets to the pro level. Everybody's got a 6'3" person, so she's an awesome rebounder.
Yep.
But and Paige, we'll see. Paige got one more year, right? She's going to play one more year, and then
she just said she's going to play again.
I think it's probably wise.
Bad,
I think that's great. But like I said, it's like playoff defense in the NBA is just a whole nother game. It's like fourth quarter defense. But so we'll see. I'm hoping. So all three of them have been great for college, women's college basketball. And I hope they do well in the pros. That's going to be great.
Well, here's the crazy thing. If she was coming up 5 years ago, there wouldn't be any cards of her except for unlicensed cards. Because of NIL, we can finally have cards of a college superstar. And we're seeing it a bit with college football. But I think this is going to be a much bigger deal in the future for collectors when you're able to collect a player who's in college and there's collectibles out there. In the past, there weren't. Maybe you'd be collecting Caitlin Clark bobbleheads or something without logos from Leaf, perhaps. It would be different. So the fact that NIL happened allows someone like Caitlin Clark to be even greater than she is, where we've got cards selling for $5,000, $10,000, which is awesome.
And
it's changed the landscape.
Yeah.
I mean, now the prospect or college cards or NIL cards are here to stay now, and it mainly affects. I mean, no offense, I love baseball, but it affects baseball less, and it affects hockey less, I think. But basketball and football, when you're the rabid college fans seeing and so seeing Caitlin Clark in an Iowa uniform is not only not a bad thing, it's a really good thing.
Yeah.
LSU for Angel Reese, that's going to be more meaningful than whatever for a while, whatever WNBA franchise she signs with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's changed. This is a new day. NIL had so many unintended consequences, and certainly all good for the players. and hopefully good for the hobby because it's broadened the range of cards out there that are desirable.
And if I have my history correctly, I think it was the O'Bannon brothers that started all this when they sued if the EA Sports or whoever was doing the video games, and that goes back probably 20 some years it took to catch up. So, all right, moving on to what I think is one of the bigger stories for the hobby is Fanatics Fest, and I put in there as this promoter rival because Fanatics is coming in the Javits Center in New York City, and it's going to be the same weekend as the East Coast National. And the promoters of the East Coast National, some of them are involved in the National. So Fanatics certainly the 800-pound gorilla right now. And the show they're putting on, from everything I'm hearing, is going to be a different type of card show, more experiential, more like a Comic-Con almost. What do you guys think about them coming in and putting on a big show right in the middle of New York that weekend?
I think it's got to be their Fan Fest idea. Surely is way less than 50% card show. And the East Coast National that I used to go to every year is 95% card show. I mean, in the old days, there wasn't even that much about the signers as much about a bunch of really outstanding dealers on the East Coast that came together every year. So I think they can coexist. And it's like whatever it is, McDonald's being across the street from Burger King, or having Pepsi and Coke, and having two shoe stores next to each other. You know, they're an hour away, guys, by train or by mass transit. I've said it's making me think about going up there that weekend, because that's the way I used to do show travel. I'd get a twofer that I could stay in the city and go up, and it wasn't usually, I loved going to hitting two big shows on one weekend. And when they're an hour apart, and each one is going to be outstanding for the type of show that they are. I hope the East Coast National doesn't try to change its spots to respond. And I hope the Fan Fest doesn't turn into one gigantic card show. It can't be the National. It's got to have this experience. And if they do that, again, that's the kind of show that can move toward 10X, getting people that are going to come and then find, oh, there's a whole huge room over here with cards, but there's all these other fun things I can do with my kids and my buddies.
That's really it. Working closely, being from the manufacturing side, working closely with the leagues. The leagues have one major desire for everyone who is a fan of the sport to be a fan of collectibles and to immerse yourselves in collectibles. And unfortunately, that's not the case right now. The case is that maybe 15% of, probably less for some sports, of the fans actually collect everything from sports cards to bobbleheads. And this type of event is designed to help transition people who are fans into collectors. And again, if one thing that Fanatics has said from the get-go is they want to 10X the hobby, which, for a lot of us is scary, because it's kind of like the hobby has been like our garage band that we grew up with and kind of loved, and they're trying to take them mainstream and make it a bigger deal, selling out arenas. So that can be scary, but at the same time, it's great. It's great, again, because the more people in the hobby, the more mainstream it becomes, the more valuable all our assets are, and it gets a lot easier to collect too.
I wanted to mention a comment here talking about your fear, Chris, or people's fear that you said they might have on something different. Rex wants to know, will there be any dealer tables at the Fanatics event?
To my understanding, there will. For the initial announcement, they wanted to share the partners that are going to be there. So obviously, Tom Brady has a little more cachet than Bel Air Sports Cards in Maryland, perhaps. But at the same time,
barely.
Yeah. So I think that was their mission with the first announcement, and I'm sure they'll be talking more.
But they'd be making a mistake if they have too few, and they'd be making a mistake if they have too many. if somebody walks in and it looks like a big card show with a bunch of dealer booths, that's not what they're trying to create. But if it's only tucked away in a corner with a few, that's an equally bad mistake. They need to have some balance. You walk in, you think, hey, wow, this is fabulous. Let's go explore. And you're going to have some quality dealers that are displaying a range of really cool stuff.
I wanted to put this up real quick. This was some of the initial pricing that came out. I think there's a little hesitancy when people see the VIP pricing at $500 and the 3-day tickets. I have a little concern at that pricing for a more family-centered event. And I wonder, and you, Dr. Beckett, can you speak to being at the Javits Center?
Mint Collective, just 2 words. Mint Collective tickets were $9.99 or something, but then they were discounted.
Yep.
So, I mean, having a stated price that sounds like, boy, there's got to be a lot of value there. And then they can moderate the price, but they did take my breath away.
And I'll say the Mint Collective was totally, it felt different than the National. It felt different than a regional card show. It just was. And a lot of that was the design and setup and things like that they pushed manufacturers to bring and dealers to bring to the table as well. It was a different event, I felt. So
this is a good point. Fanatics has the ability to do things like selling sealed wax, dropping new releases, having special cards just at the show. So there could be a lot more there than a typical card show could offer and still be for the real collector.
Yeah, and something that Upper Deck does and started when I was there is they have an event called the Certified Diamond Dealer Conference, and at that conference, it's only for shops that go. But one of the reasons why you need to go if you're a shop is they offer exclusive products to people who go to that event. And the event's just about making you a better shop. So it's a win-win. So I that model's been set up. It's something really easy for Fanatics to replicate. Here's a new product release exclusively for this event. Go. They'll make it where it sells out quick, and it's a big buzz, and it'll be even more popular next year if they do it right. So
yeah, but that's your certified diamond dealers. I believe Fanatics is going to do the same thing. I think this is invitation only for dealers. They're not saying, hey, whatever dealer wants to come. No, it's going to be dealers that either have great reputations or that they're already in relationship with, that are they're approved breakers and direct accounts and things like that. So I just think if you're just a dude that says, hey, I want to come, I want to get a table, I don't know how they finesse that but there's probably going to be some qualification, just like the National. You've got to have a dealer priority to get in there. And Fanatics is probably going to have their own version of that with dealers that they deem worthy of having a booth and having access to these goodies, because a lot of these summits and things like that had goodies. So Upper Deck.
Going back to the industry conference, in Hawaii.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was frosting on the cake.
Yeah.
But it was pretty heavy frosting some years.
Well, it helps offset the cost of the ticket, right? I mean, that's why the manufacturers who've done it before in the past is, all right, we know this is going to be an expensive event. Let's help customers out by giving them some items that are unique and can help, make it worth their while.
Have we seen any info if that's what it costs to get in? What would it cost to get a booth?
Well, I had one
Javits Center, which is the Nationals never really seriously considered the Javits Center because of the cost of doing business in New York City is just crazy.
2 points. John Keating, who does a lot of big events around the country, says at the Javits Center, it's $250 to put in an extension cord. And that may or may not be sarcastic. Some of it is. Yeah, it is crazy.
That union labor will get you.
Well, and that gets back to the cost of hosting the event, and putting it on. So that weighs in, and to Dr. Beckett's point, why the National has probably not been in the Javits Center just for the regular dealers. But from the dealer I spoke to, who is a Fanatics dealer, they were offered a discounted table rate or free VIP passes. So they're definitely trying to keep it to the Fanatics.
And Fanatics events, of which they have their own structure there, will I would think work out a deal with the union, a package deal.
Yeah, Jillian Gross over there at Fanatics is fantastic. She's very sharp and throws some great events. So excited to see what she comes up with.
Does PSA? What's PSA's role, if any?
We're going to be there on site doing grading. We're going to have it cards couriered over to our New Jersey facility, which is very close, and get it back to customers. And yeah, should be a great experience. So we've known about this for a little while. I've been like, oh, I can't wait to see what people think about this when this drops. It's interesting. People think that it's collectors versus fanatics, when really, there's a lot of synergies and a lot of things that we can do together that help lift both brands. So we're excited about being there.
And John says, the union contracts are not discretionary. Definitely. All right. As we come down the home stretch, I always like to wrap up with a couple things for the week and some more stories. There is a new news media that's covering collectibles that has come out this week. Darren Ravel has launched his new media company. Do we need more media covering the hobby? Are there too many sites that are doing stories on the hobby, Dr. Beckett?
There are too many restaurants. It's just there's always room for excellence. You bring excellence into the market, it'll be received. And if you if you come into a crowded market with less than your A game, good luck. But I'm another good solid source that adds excellence. I'm in favor of that. I think all of us welcome competition if it's fair competition and it causes us to up our game.
As a collector, I like reading the backstories on some auction items. I've found it interesting this week. Chris, where do you usually go to get your hobby news? Because I know you have to keep up every minute of every day.
Yeah, social media is so awesome for that, right? So hobby Twitter is great. I have Facebook is great. Obviously, there's a lot of groups. Facebook does a great job with their groups, so you can dive into if you only want to talk Marvel or Star Wars cards, things like that. I have a lot of fun in those types of groups. Reddit is great. And then, a source that I don't think a lot of people utilize is LinkedIn, where, linking in with trading card executives or people at grading companies or things like that, you really see what they're putting into their business and their work. So I've found that LinkedIn is a lot more hobby friendly these days than it used to be.
That's right.
And I think, again, the thing about Collect is the same. I have the same feelings about Fanatics Fest. What's wrong with more news on our industry? What's wrong with more events? What's wrong with more attention? What's wrong with more people? Nothing. It's a win. So it should be something that we celebrate.
Yep. And a shout out to Rich Miller and the guys who've been doing it for a long time, and wish Darren and his group a good luck moving forward. Chris, you're in DC going to the Capitals game. Are you going to be going to the game? Or?
Yeah, we're going to be taking submissions starting in about an hour, and then take them for 3.5 hours, and then enjoy the game. So it should be fun. It's National Hockey Card Day today, so that's kind of cool. So hopefully there's some packs out there to be found. But I'm bringing a bunch of cards to give away to kids and things like that. So that's always fun.
What do people need to do if they want to submit? Just bring the cards, or do they need to do something beforehand?
Ideally, they'd fill out their submission form beforehand and just have them first to drop off. But we've launched something that is just so cool. It makes the submission form process frighteningly easy. Through the PSA app, you can now take a picture of the card, and it just pops up in the submission form if we've graded it before. So I just used it on a Yu-Gi-Oh submission because it's kind of hard to tell on the TCGs what exactly everything is. and using image recognition software, we're able to say, all right, this is this. So I think it's awesome. So people could literally do it from their phone's submission form there. So that's nice.
Very cool. I like the idea of going around to different places in the country because I speak to so many people that want to hand cards over in person. I can't tell you, like, every other person I talk to, they're waiting, they're waiting for the next show, and they're literally sitting on these unbelievable cards in a pile for the next show. So if you have a pile, don't wait for the next show.
We were set up at the Wizards game yesterday. We got 3 Jordan rookies in. Like, you wouldn't think that you would see that at
he played for the Wizards.
Yeah. So it was pretty eye-opening that there should be more of this. We should integrate more with live events, and that's something that we're trying to do more of. So we've done an event like this with the Phoenix Suns. We've done it with the Wizards. We're doing the Capitals today. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do more and more of these types of in-person events.
There's a misconception that, when people say, hey, Fanatics, how are you going to do 10X? And, I did a little podcast vignette about that. There's a book that 10X can actually be easier than 2X because you think big. But we need to kind of we want the hobby to grow. And whether it's 5X or 10X, what we want to avoid is 1X.
Yeah.
Or 0.8X or 0.5X. We don't want contraction. And so most organisms, they either grow or they wither. And so we want this organism that is the hobby, and we want all the actors, all the major actors in this ecosystem to be promoting the hobby. And so, that's Upper Deck, that's collectors, that's Beckett, that's every group we would talk to, and maybe especially Fanatics, maybe especially eBay, maybe especially collectors, because I think those are the 3 big entities. And I think Panini's 4th, and I hope Panini does well too.
Yeah, and a quick shout out to Panini for continuing to sign amateur athletes, talking about the NILs and the stuff they do. I do like to see a competitive marketplace, to Dr. Beckett's point. And
Panini is not resting on their laurels at all. I just had a conversation with Scott Prusha the other day, and he's talking about putting sample cards in PSA magazines and, just all sorts of things, and some of the things that they're doing with Live Golf, and it's good. So
they had smooth sailing for a decade.
Yeah,
it's not smooth sailing anymore. It's hard work, but they've got good people still over there.
Agreed.
I hope they do great.
Yeah, the counterpunch is not gone unnoticed by a lot of people. I think the more success they find in areas that are growing, they're almost finding the stocks. It's almost like picking stocks, and they've been picking pretty well recently. Dr. Beckett, your hobby weekend. You're organizing, selling off your 1%. What are you doing this weekend?
Again, just to clarify, I'm buying 1/10 of 1% a month, and I'm selling 1% a month.
Okay.
And I've been very successful for almost 2 years doing that now. Now, you wouldn't know if you walked in here. Still looks like a lot of cards, but I have made progress. And but mostly that's eBay and ComC.
My wife has this deal where you can buy new cards, but if something's coming in the door, something's got to go out the door. So I was like, I'm giving away all these cards this weekend. It's going to be great. So, yeah.
Right. It's the revolving door marriage theory.
Yeah.
So I've solved that by having a different door.
Right.
I have my own private door. It never gets in the house. It comes into my back house.
There you go.
Yeah. John Keating just called you out on that. It says, don't believe you and your crazy stats that you're a buyer. So
I like Mookie. Mookie always has at least one great comment, but Mookie, you got too many 9s there. Just maybe take off a few 9s there. Just it's 0.99xing. Yeah.
All right. Well, Chris, Dr. Beckett, everybody in the chat room, what a week. From vaults to grading to everything, and mergers and trades, and we didn't hit half the things that were on the list in the chat room this week. So
Give the guys next week something to talk about. Yeah.
Well, I just can't wait to go to the chat room and see what I absolutely get grilled for missing. So if I missed it, guys, I tried. Chris, Dr. Beckett, thank you very much.
Great seeing you guys. Good seeing you, Dr. Jim.
Thanks, Chris. Good seeing you.
Good luck today, Chris, at the event. Weather should get nice.
Yeah.
All right. To everybody else, I'm going to try to remember to play the outro today. And, nobody's perfect. Thank you, and we'll see you next week. Every Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, Bench Clear Media. Take care.
Thanks, guys.